Hello everyone, Trisend here. This is going to be my Season 13 Syndra guide. For a bit of context, I've been Challenger for the past 3 seasons and I've been maining Syndra since Season 11. I'm here to help those wanting to pick up the champion or wanting to get some help on her. In this guide, I'll be going over what items and runes I go, as well as how I play the laning phase and mid-game, as well as some other general tips. I'm going to quickly go over the items and runes, but I'm going to go in more details when I get into the game. Starting off the laning phase, I usually always start Doran's Ring, although you can start Corrupting Potion if your verse is a heavy poke laner. In terms of first back, I would buy how I have it listed, Refillable, Control Ward, and then usually Lost Chapter and then rush the Mythic. If you don't have enough gold to get the Mythic components, I would just go Dark Seal then. The second best item in my opinion is Shadow Flame. You can go to defensive item second if you want, but I find just going Shadow Flame second is always the best option. After Shadow Flame, it's really going to depend on what they have. If they have any MR at all, I would definitely go Void Staff next. After the Void Staff, I'll just go defensive item like Sonya's or Banshee's. I'll either buy one with the Magi's or I'll buy both. The Death Cap isn't usually needed as you'll already one-shot people with the full Magic Pen. For runes, this is usually what I run about almost every single game, with some exceptions. The main reason we go these runes is because it really helps you snowball and get your mythic early. And if you get ahead with these runes, it's very hard to stop you. These are the second runes I run. I usually run it versus Fizz, although you can run it versus other hard matchups like LeBlanc and Echo. This is the last rune page I'll recommend. It's usually used in Korea where the games are a bit faster, so if you're in a slower region, I would definitely just go the first rune page. For summoner spells, you have a few options. I usually always just default to teleport, but if you really want, you can go cleanse versus Lysandra Zoe, exhaust versus Zed, ghost if you really want it, and then ignite if you want a solo kill earlier, but honestly I think teleport's just the best option. Getting into the game now, I'm going to quickly go over each ability, starting with Syndra's passive, Transcendent. Syndra's passive is a stacking passive, meaning you have to collect Splinters of Wrath to enhance your other abilities. Each of Syndra's abilities has a set amount of Splinters you need for them to be upgraded, which I'll show here. Dark Spear needs 40, the W needs 60, and the E needs 80, and then it keeps on going on all the way to 120. At 120, you fully stack the Splinters, and then you get the true effect. There's 3 ways to get Splinters on Syndra. The first way is from champions, which I'll show right now. Dealing 2 instances of ability damage to an enemy champion within 4 seconds grants you 1 to 3 Splinters based on your levels, and these levels are 1, 11, and 18. Once I hit the champion with one ability, you see a little purple effect, and then right when I hit them with a second ability, it'll create a circle around them with a ring. That's the cooldown. It's 8 seconds. After 8 seconds, you can do it again. If you try to hit him with 2 abilities within that 8 seconds, you won't get the Splinter stack, so you actually have to wait. When you get a Splinter stack from this way specifically from an enemy, you actually restore mana. So this is very important in the laning phase. So you actually get punished for missing your abilities and trying to hit them while they're on cooldown, so it's very important to land your abilities in laning phase. Now, the second way to get Splinter stacks is every time you kill a cannon minion, it actually gives you a Splinter stack, so make sure you don't miss those cannons. Now, there's one more way to get Splinter stacks as Syndra. Every time you level up, it actually gives you Splinter stacks. So this is actually the easiest way to get Splinter stacks, as it doesn't require anything from you but leveling up. So if you're really snowballing in terms of levels, you'll get a lot of Splinter stacks early. Now we'll go over the first evolve, which is the Q. It requires 40 Splinter stacks, and it's arguably one of the best ones to get. What it allows you to do is, it allows you to store an extra Q, so you can charge up to 2 now. So as you can see, right as I get 40 stacks, the icon actually changes, and now there's a 2 by it. And if I use them both back to back, it'll go on a 5-second cooldown. But if I wait for the circle to almost complete, and then I use one of the Qs, it'll be a 1-second cooldown. So they actually store, so it's important to make sure you know this mechanic. One more thing to note about the Q is, you can actually Q outside the indicator because the Q's hitbox is actually quite large. So if you Q, although the indicator says the Q is right there, if you Q at the edge of it, it'll actually still hit them because the radius hits it on the outside. Syndra's next ability is called Force of Will, and it has quite a bit going for it. What Force of Will allows you to do is it allows you to pick up an object. For laning phase, the two objects you can pick up are Syndra's ball and the minions on the ground. A really important thing to note about the W is, if you cast it just normally looking forward at the character or the champion, it's pretty slow. But if you do it while looking backwards, it actually travels down faster. So you really have to get into the habit of whenever you cast the W, look the opposite way that you're throwing it. The minion and the ball isn't the only thing you can pick up. You can also pick up every single jungle camp, as you can see. But those aren't the only things you can pick up either. You can also pick up every single pet also. So that means Ivern's are, Annie's are, Zyra's plants. All of these things you can pick up with Syndra's W. Trick with the W I'll often use is I'll pick up the Scuttle Crab and then give it to my jungler if the enemy jungler is trying to take the Scuttle Crab. Whenever you pick something up also, you can always see the cast range when you hold the W. Similar to Syndra's Q, if you use the W at the edge of the cast range, it'll actually still hit the champion even though it's outside of it. Once you hit 60 splinter stacks, your W will evolve. The W evolve gives you true damage on your W. It's 2% per 100 AP. Also keep in mind the W does slow the enemy. Syndra's third ability is Scatter the Weak. What Scatter the Weak allows you to do is it knocks back all targets that you hit at, and if you throw a ball beforehand, it will stun them. As you can see, if I just do a standard QE, he will be stunned. There's another way to do it is if there's already a ball on the ground, you follow the arrow indicator that's it's pointing at, and then you E in that direction and they'll also be stunned, although the Q won't damage them, only the E will. If you played Syndra before the rework, you might be familiar with the EQ combo. Unfortunately, that's been patched ever since the rework, so don't be trying to EQ anyone, it doesn't work. Once you hit 80 stacks, you'll reach Syndra's second E effect, which is a slow basically. It also increases the width of the cone for the hitbox. So as you can see, once I E the Scuttle Crab, his movement speed goes down to 110. This will also pair with the stun, although you don't have to hit the stun for the slow to activate. But if you hit it with the stun, the slow will activate afterward for a really good CC. Syndra's R actually has two things going for it. Every time you put a point into the R, it actually reduces your Dark Spear, or your Q's cooldown, by 10%, up to 30% ability haste. Now, if we just cast the R normally on a target, it doesn't do much damage, right? But if we actually put a few Qs down before we put out the R, it actually will do a lot more damage. As you can see, with 2 Qs, it actually does almost double the damage. And then if we put even more down, like let's say 3, it'll do even more damage. So whenever you R, make sure you always have a Q down. Now, once you get 100 splinter stacks, you get your R upgrade. What the R upgrade allows you to do is it'll execute them below 15% HP. So if they're below 15% HP, it will kill them regardless. So whenever you try to R someone, try to do it at the last second when they're at their lowest HP. So once you get 120 stacks late game, the final splinter upgrade, all it will do is give you more AP, so you just do more damage basically. Now quickly going back to the items, the most important stat on Syndra in my opinion is magic penetration. So after you get Shadow Flame and Sork Boots, I think if they have any magic penetration at all, just go Void Staff. Because you just want to be able to one-shot them basically. And then after the Void Staff, just go, you can go Magshais if you have a fully stocked Dark Seal if you want. I usually just go Zanyas or Banshees though. And most times I'll actually just buy both of them with the elixir, and then I'm basically unkillable and I can still one-shot everything. You could go Death Cap instead of one of those defensive items, but you can still one-shot almost everyone without the Death Cap, so it's not needed. Now, going over the runes again that we're going to be using in laning phase. For First Strike, our goal is just to try to proc it as often as we can whenever it's up. We don't want the enemy to proc it before us. Magical Footwear, this just helps with snowballing. Minion DMAT, you want to use one on each type of minion because you actually get the most value if you do it that way. As you can see, you get 6% and you only get 3% on the second one. And this will also allow you to WQ one-shot the back wave earlier than intended. Cosmic Insight's actually really nice also. It allows you to have your flash up more, and it also allows you to get more early teleports, which is really nice. And then the last two, Transcendence and Gathering Storm, they're just for snowballing. In terms of maxing order, you're always going to max Q first, W second, then E third, and this also follows the Splinters of Wrath path. Generally, you're going to start Q level 1. Depending on the matchup though, you don't always want to start Q right away. You want to save it till the laning starts. As an example, in this clip, Rookie started E versus Akshan because the Akshan actually started Hookshot level 1. As for which ability you're going to start second, it's generally going to be QE, but starting QW also isn't terrible. As you can see, if you can land the W, it pretty much guarantees the Q because the W is going to be slowing them. But just starting QE and getting a Splinter stack that way also isn't bad. For what you want to do in the early laning phases, I always try to hard shove the wave and always get the ward on Raptors. And trading on the opponent, you want to try to do it at a time either when your first strike is available or when you're guaranteed to get a Splinter stack. You don't want to just throw a Q out randomly. For advice on hitting skill shots early, always pay attention to your own minion's HP and when the enemy is about to CS it. That's the perfect time to land a skill shot. As you can see in this clip, a Kali tried to last hit the minion and got punished for it. An easy way to get Splinter stacks in lane is, once your Q is evolved, put a Q down on the ground, and then put another Q right next to it, followed by an E, and then immediately W. This should almost guarantee a Splinter stack. If you're unsure where the jungler is, or your flash is on cooldown, make sure not to use your E recklessly, as a Syndra without E is just free ganks. As soon as you use an E aggressively in lane, make sure to back up immediately, because as soon as your E is on cooldown, you really don't have much disengage tool other than your flash. Going into mid game, you're most likely going to be forced into side laning, which isn't that good for Syndra. Some advice on side laning is, always try to Q the brushes or W them to get vision. If your Luden's procs, or the W gives you vision of the brush, immediately back up. Also, whenever you're clearing waves, make sure not to use your E. I'm going to quickly talk about some wave clearing advice. So Lost Chapter, with the minion DMAT on the ranged, a WQ will always one-shot them. Once you get Blasting Wand with Lost Chapter, it takes 1 Q plus 1 auto attack to one-shot the backline. Once you get Luden's, 1 Q will one-shot the back wave, but it will only work with the Luden's proc. Once you get the large rod component of Shadow Flame, you can always one-shot the back wave with 1 Q. Keep in mind all these thresholds assume that you use at least 1 minion DMAT on the back wave. During the mid game, always try to look for picks in places where the enemy doesn't have vision. As you can see here, we got a pick on the Graves which secured us the Baron. After you shove out your side wave, try to look for a pick mid with your ADC. Late game is going to be similar to mid game, except for you're going to be grouping with your team a lot more. Make sure the side wave is pushed out and then look for a pick on a priority target. I'll be going over combos now, starting with the most basic one, which is just a QE followed by an auto attack and then walk away. The next combo is similar to the first. You want to put a Q on the ground beforehand. Wait until just before it expires, then E it, and then Q the enemy again. The next combo, you're going to max range QE, followed by a W. You won't get the Q damage, but you will get a splinter. If the enemy is chasing you, pick up something with your W, W them, and then Q them while they're slowed. For the max damage combo, you want to pick something up beforehand, preferably one of your balls, and then you want to QE, W the thrown object, Q, R, and this will one-shot almost everything. Sometimes you don't even need the R. The one-shot combo that we just shown is going to be the one that we use the most, so you have to get very familiar with it. The reason we do it in this combo also is because the W actually does the most damage. Here are some more advanced tricks that are really easy to miss unless you're really looking out for it. This one in particular I really didn't know about until I watched a replay. So let's say you're in a brush, right? And you're looking for a pick on the top laner. If you put the ball down and then pick it up with your W, they actually have complete vision of you. So right as I pick up that W right there, they now have complete vision of me, even though I picked it up in the brush. So if you're ever in a brush, make sure you always start the combo with a QE. Don't ever pick something up. Another useful tip is if you're trying to crash a cannon wave really fast, pick up the cannon wave with your W after clearing the other minions and then throw it into your tower. This way, the minions won't aggro it and the turret will kill it faster. A tip if the enemy jungler is invading your camps is to pick up the camp with your W, walk past the turret or somewhere far away, and then W it out of the aggro range, and this way it will reset the aggro. This will either waste their time or they'll just give up. If you ever have your wave shoved in and the scuttle crabs are up, try to look if you can go steal it from the enemy jungler. This can really tilt them. Using your W will give you vision of camps and other brushes, so make sure you abuse this so you don't face check. This one is pretty niche, but it can come in handy and it's good to know. If you actually pick up the red with your W and then throw it at an enemy champion, it will actually apply the red buff. I'm going to quickly go over the other item options you have that I've seen other Syndra players go. So for mythics, you can go Leandries if you want. It's mostly good versus tanks and HP stackers. It's better if they have very high HP though, keep that in mind. The second option would be Crown. This is if you just really want to survive and you already have damage from other sources and you just keep on getting one shot by everything. For second items, it's Archangel Staff. Keep in mind though, if you go this item, you do have to buy tier, which will delay your mythic spike. And Shadow Flame generally does more damage as a second item, but the shield is pretty nice. The other option I've seen people go is Cosmic Drive. The movement speed can help you in certain matchups and the CDR is nice. Keep in mind though, if you go this, you will be giving up Shadow Flame. And I think the magic pen on Shadow Flame is very important. Okay, I'm going to be going over the matchups now for Syndra. Keep in mind, these matchups are specifically for 13.11. So if you want a more up-to-date tier list, follow my Twitter. I posted every patch on there. Another thing to keep in mind is this is my experience playing Syndra and Challenger and a solo queue. So if you're a different region or you're a lower elo, your experience may vary. I know a lot of lower elo Syndras, for example, struggle with Zed, so keep that in mind. So starting with the very top, we're going to go with LeBlanc. So LeBlanc was a matchup I previously didn't have that much trouble with. However, recently on this patch, going against LeBlanc's, Challenger LeBlanc's, she can dash out of all of your abilities, and she can chunk you like in one combo. It's actually kind of crazy. And if you push up too far, you'll just get ganked by the jungler. So I think this is one of the worst matchups actually. Okay, next we have Zoe. So also take in mind, when I'm saying these champions, I'm assuming the person can actually pilot the champion too. So Zoe's actually a very terrible matchup because if you actually want to live, you have to go cleanse if you ever get hit by a bubble. But I don't think it's worth giving up teleport. So I think it's better just to play safe. But if you get hit by a bubble, she can actually just one-shot you if she has like a summoner spell, like a double ignite or something. So you got to be really careful about this matchup. Yeah, so it was the third hardest matchup. I personally ban Yasuo. The reason being is he's the second most played champion in Challenger NA. So you're more likely to see him than the other two. The main reason he's so hard is he can dash out of all your abilities. You're going to see a common trend here. If they can dash out of your abilities, it's very hard to lane versus them because you can't get stacks then. Also, his wind wall can block your E, so then you can't stun him. So if the Yasuo is really good, he can wind wall right as you E, and then you can never stun him. So overall, pretty terrible matchup. Next is Katarina. Definitely a terrible matchup. Like the other ones, she can dash out of all your abilities. You could honestly put her in hard, and I would probably agree with you. It's just wait. The only thing is, Katarina, her laning phase is terrible, so she can't solo kill you. It's just, you can never really get splinter stacks on her, because she can always just E out of your abilities. Next is Azir. Azir's only a hard matchup if he's overpowered, pretty much, or his stats are really good. Like when Azir was meta, it was like really hard to lane versus him because his range is longer than yours basically, and his poke was insane. He's pretty weak right now, but if he ever becomes meta again, just watch out for this matchup. Next is Echo. So Echo's laning phase can be pretty terrible if you space correctly. The only real issue with Echo is, again, he can dash out of your abilities. Also, if he E's towards you while you QE him, he can actually go through your E, which is really annoying. So you have to be very careful of that. Okay, next we have Zed. Zed has a pretty terrible laning phase. A lot of low elo players struggle with him, but honestly, going against the best Zeds in NA, the challenger ones, I really don't think it's that bad of a matchup. You just have to respect the shadow. So before he shadows, don't E. After he shadows, wait for it to disappear. Once it's fully disappeared, then you can use your E. And if you do that, you should be pretty safe in this matchup. Next is Nico. Honestly, I don't think Nico's even that bad. It's just that she's overpowered right now. Like she hits you with 1Q and you lose half your HP, so until they nerf her, she's going to be up here, but she's most likely a lower tier matchup. Silas, actually a really annoying matchup. Again, like the other champions up here, he can dash out of your abilities with his E. He can steal your R and one-shot you, depending on the build he goes. You can never really push up the lane too far because it's very easy for the jungler to gank you with the Silas E, so pretty terrible matchup. Okay, next we have Fizz. Fizz is seen as the number one Syndra counter. Often if you steal Syndra from a one trick, they'll play Fizz. Honestly, I think Fizz is just a terrible champion right now. He suffers from the other problems all assassins have where they can't lane. So if you play the lane correctly and freeze it and just poke him out, he literally can't play the game. And then if you don't get killed by jungle ganks with his R, you're pretty much safe. So honestly, it's not a terrible matchup. It's probably only terrible if his is overpowered. Okay, next we have the even/skill matchup. First we have Orianna. Pretty self-explanatory. You dodge her abilities, you hit yours, you're going to win the matchup. If you get hit, you're going to lose. Next is Victor. Victor, I think he's the best control mage in the game. He completely dominates you level 1 to 3. So the first back, he's always going to win. If he plays it correctly, he can just walk up to you, Q you with his shield, and then you can't do anything in return. And your Q cooldown at level 1 is too long, so you can't really do much about it. Next, we have Ahri. Ahri is currently overpowered, so that's why she's this high. Otherwise, it's not that bad of a matchup. You just have to watch out for the cheesy flash charm, or when she has 6, you just have to watch out when she charms you for the jungler. Ziggs, if he plays it correctly, he can poke you out. His range is longer than yours. He can shove the waves really fast. If you ever roam, he's just going to destroy your turret, so it's a pretty annoying matchup, but you can definitely win it if you dodge all of his stuff. Anivia, mostly annoying for the egg. If she R's you, you can stop her R with your E, but it's mostly just the egg. Talia, not much to say. Just have to dodge her W. Try to dodge her Q as much as you can, and it's not that bad of a lane. Vel'Koz, nobody plays this champion high elo, but he can be annoying if they're like a Vel'Koz one trick. He can outrange you, but if you play it safe, it's not that bad of a matchup. Xerath, pretty easy matchup. Just have to dodge his stuff. He's not that good of a champion anyway. Rumble, very hard to kill. Just don't give him too much lane priority, because if he just AFK shoves the waves, he's just going to roam all over the map and then just dominate the map. So you do have to poke him occasionally and try to keep the wave shoved out if you can. Kassadin, it's a terrible champion. You can punish him so hard pre-6. If he gets a few kills early though and he's 6, he can bully you pretty hard, so it's pretty easy otherwise though, because you can seriously bully him pre-6. Galio, super easy matchup. If he ever E's, you just E him. You can poke him, you just can't really kill him. You'll only really lose if he outroams you or if you get cheesed ganked by the jungler. Kali, pretty easy. Just hard shove her in all the time. You'll always get wards on the Raptors, so you'll always have prio in mid. As long as you don't get ganked early, this is a pretty free lane too. Vladimir, super free also. You outrange him completely. He shouldn't be able to get a free Q healing on you, but if he does, then you're just not playing it right. Annie, super easy matchup. Only reason she's this high is because Annie's overpowered, but if she ever like R's you, you can literally just pick up the bear and then it can't hurt you, so it's like very easy to deal with. Bran, super easy, you outrange him. Vhagar, super easy. You can seriously bully him, you just have to be careful of his ranges and then you're fine. Swain is pretty free. You just don't get hit by his grab and then, well, that's pretty much it. If you get hit by the grab, you're going to lose. If you dodge it, you don't. Diana, nobody plays her mid. Also, she has a pretty weak laning phase. You can really exploit her. You just have to watch out if she goes like Ignite and like a cheesy build for the one shot. Other than that, it's pretty free. Okay, now we're in the easy tier. Cassia, one of the freest matchups. Super easy, you outrange her completely. She can cheese you if she like flash R's you, or she gets a Q on you and then you waste your E for some reason, but other than that, it's very free. Ryze is a terrible champion this patch. He is getting buffed next patch, and he can be kind of annoying if he goes really tanky and then you can never kill him, then he just like roams around the map killing your team. He can also flash EW you and then the jungler can kill you if they have a CC jungler, so it's not completely free, but if they don't have a jungler that has CC, it's pretty free. Twisted Fate, completely free. You completely outrange him. He should never be able to throw a card on you unless he flashes. If he ever walks up with a gold card, you just QE him away. It's a very easy matchup. He'll only win if he outroams you. Malzahar, super free also. Just have to be careful of his R. If he does R you though, if you QE him right as he Rs you, it'll actually stop his R, so That's a pretty hard counter, honestly. Corki, nobody plays him. He's pretty weak right now. He's only annoying when he's meta and he first buys a Hex Drinker. Other than that, it's a pretty free lane. Brilliant Soul, one of the easiest matchups. He has to stop to use his abilities, and then right when he does that, it's a free QE. The only thing you have to be careful of, if you whiff your QE, he can dash on top of you and then just get like chunk your entire HP, so do be careful when you use your E. Talon, super free matchup. You completely outrange him. If you don't get cheese level 2 or 3 and he doesn't get a bunch of early kills from roaming, you're completely fine. He should never be able to kill you. It's a very easy matchup. Syndra is one of the easiest matchups in the game. You outrange her and can bully her really hard. Only thing you really have to be careful of is like if she flash Rs you and you get camped by the jungler. Other than that, it's very free. If you're ganking her, by the way, wait until she dashes away and then QE her as she's dashing, and it stops her dash. So it's pretty free. That tier list was actually missing a few champions, so this is how I'd rank the rest of the champions. Sante, he's currently overpowered. He builds one MR item and then you can never kill him. He can tower dive you and then ult you away from your tower and solo kill you. It's pretty annoying, so you have to keep the wave shoved out. Aurelia, pretty annoying matchup, honestly. If you have a bad jungler, this is definitely an S tier, because if she freezes the wave and your jungler doesn't help you push it out, then you can't lane, but in my experience, the Aurelia usually ints and it's free kill, so. Gragas is overpowered, you can never kill him. He heals all of your damage. He can poke you out like crazy and you can't do anything about it. He can CC chain you with his R, so it's a pretty terrible matchup, but he's also overpowered at the moment. Kiana, she can be annoying if she's overpowered. Right now, she's really weak, so it's not even a bad matchup, but yeah, she's probably around B. Jace is probably a C or D tier, but he's like very strong at the moment. He's picked all the time in pro play, and he's picked a lot in solo queue. So if he wasn't as strong as he was, he'd probably be like a D or C tier. Like Sean's a pretty free matchup. You just have to save your E for his hook shot. And other than that, he can only really cheese you with if you use your E beforehand or if like he gets roams bot lane or something. One is super free matchup, one of the easiest matchups in the game in my opinion. Whenever he has his win thing, you just have to play respectfully, and then once it's gone, you can just bully him all you want. It's only really a danger if you miss position or if he gets a good R on you. Other than that, it's one of the freest matchups. Pantheon, another free matchup. You completely outrange him. He should never be able to get on top of you without flashing, and if he doesn't get fed off camping bot or something, it's a free matchup. Then lastly, we have Vex. Vex can't lane versus control mages. Her range is too short, and it's just a super free matchup, honestly. Unless you get camped or something, it's like one of the freest matchups. That's going to be all for my Syndra guide for patch 13.11. Thank you everyone for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate a comment, like, and subscribe. This video took a long time to make. If you're interested in watching me live, I'll be over at twitch.com/Trisend3. If you're interested in tier lists and other things like that, I'm going to be posting them frequently on my Twitter. All my socials will be down in the description. And other than that, thank you for watching. Goodbye.